The stranger at the funeral. On the dead who return unfinished. A man stood at his father's funeral. The funeral was in the small cemetery at the edge of his village. It was a morning in late autumn. The trees around the cemetery were almost bare. The light was grey and clean. The man was 44. His father had been 79. The grave had been dug. The grave diggers had finished an hour before the ceremony. The soil they had displaced was piled neatly beside the grave, covered by a small cloth. The priest had said the words. The priest had known the father. The priest had been the father's friend. The words had been in their delivery more personal than the standard liturgy. The earth had been thrown. The man himself had thrown the first handful as the custom required. The handful had landed on the wooden lid of the coffin with a small dry sound that the man would remember for the rest of his life. The mourners had begun to drift away across the cemetery. There had been perhaps 40 of them. The father had been a man of moderate connections, a few cousins, a few old colleagues from his work at the small bank, a few neighbors, the priest, the family. They had stood in a loose semicircle around the grave during the words. Now they were beginning, in the way mourners do, to move toward the gate. They had appointments. They had carriages waiting. They would, in the next several hours, go to the wake at the father's house, where the man's mother had prepared bread and cold meat. The man stood for a moment alone at the graveside. He had not, in the days leading up to the funeral, fully wept. He had wept on the morning of the father's death, when the doctor had come down from the bedroom and had given him the news in the kitchen. He had wept again, briefly, on the second morning, when he had opened the wardrobe and had seen his father's coats. He had not, in the 3 days between the death and the funeral, wept in any sustained way. The weeping, he understood, would come in its own time in the months ahead. He was, by his nature, a man whose weeping was deferred. He looked up from the grave. He noticed, among the departing mourners, a stranger he did not know. The stranger was older than his father had been. This was the first thing the man observed. His father had been 79. The stranger was somehow older, 85, perhaps 90, with the kind of bearing that age gives a man who has remained unbent. He was tall, he was thin, he had white hair longer than was the fashion of the village. He was dressed in clothes the man did not recognize. This was the second observation. The clothes were not modern, they were not antique, they were simply not from any time the man could place. The cut of the coat was unusual. The fabric was dark, not quite black, with a sheen the man had never seen on a fabric. The stranger's boots were of leather, but of a leather the man could not identify. The whole impression was of a man who had dressed himself well, in clothes that belonged to a period or a country the man did not know. He was watching the grave. He had not, the man realized, moved with the other mourners. He was standing about 20 feet from the grave, on the far side, watching. His expression was of patient sorrow. It was not the expression of a stranger watching a funeral out of casual interest. It was the expression of a man who had in some way a stake in the proceedings. The man approached him. He walked slowly. He did not, in his approach, want to startle the stranger. He had the sense that the stranger might, if startled, simply leave, and the man would not, after his leaving, be able to find him again. He stopped perhaps 6 feet from the stranger. "Sir," said the man. The stranger looked at him. His eyes were grey. They were calm. They had the look of eyes that had seen a great deal and were, in this particular moment, not surprised by being addressed. "Were you a friend of my father, S?" "No," said the stranger. The stranger's voice was soft. It had a cadence the man also could not place, not foreign, not local, but somehow older than either. "Then why have you come?" The stranger considered. "I am one of those who walks with the new dead for a little way." The man did not, at first, understand. "There are many of us," said the stranger. "We are the dead who have come back. We do not stay long. We come, when one of the new dead is being put into the ground, to walk with him along the first stretch of the road. The road is not, you understand, a road most of the living know about. It is the road the dead take. It begins at every grave. It goes, well, where it goes is the matter. We are the ones who walk new dead a little of the way, because the new dead do not, in their first hours, know the road and they need company. We have walked it before. We are familiar with the first stretch. We bring them as far as the first turning, and then we let them go on alone." The man stood very still. "You may walk with us if you wish," said the stranger. "Your father will not mind." The man considered. He was not by his nature a man who believed in such things. He had been raised in a religious household. He had attended church. He had recited the creed. But the recitation had been for him a matter of social form rather than personal conviction. He had not, in his adult life, expected to encounter the dead on the edge of a cemetery. But he was, on this particular morning, a man whose father had just been put into the ground. He was, in some sense, more open than he had been on previous mornings, and the stranger had a face that was, in its calm, impossible to disbelieve. "I would like to walk with you," said the man. The stranger nodded. "Come." The stranger turned. He began to walk slowly in a direction the man had not, at first, noticed. The cemetery had a back gate the man had not previously seen, a small wooden gate, in a section of the fence that the man would have sworn, on any other morning, had not contained any gate. The stranger walked through it. The man followed. They came out, on the other side of the gate, onto a road. The road was paved with stones. The stones were old, older than the village's roads, older than the village. The road ran straight into a kind of grey country the man had not, in his 44 years in the area, ever seen. The country was flat. There were no buildings. There was a horizon, but it was hard to estimate how far away it was. The light in this country was the same clean grey light of the autumn morning, but somehow denser, as if the morning had been compressed. Other strangers were on the road. There were perhaps 20 of them. They were of all kinds, old men, old women, a few who were younger, one or two who were, by their appearance, only children. They were all dressed in clothes the man could not place. They were walking in the same direction the man and his stranger were walking. They did not, on the man's arrival, take particular notice of him. They were absorbed in their walking. There was, in the middle of the procession, a figure the man recognized. It was his father. His father was younger than he had been at his death. He looked, in fact, perhaps 50, the age he had been when the man had been a young man. He was walking quietly. He was looking at the road, not at the man. He did not in any obvious way know the man was there. The man started to speak. The stranger beside him put a hand on his arm. "He does not see you," said the stranger. "He is in the first hour. He is concentrating on the walking. He will see you in some sense later, not in this country, but in the country he goes to, where the dead remember those they left. He will see you then. He will see all of you. He is preparing now to receive that seeing. Do not interrupt him." The man nodded. They walked in silence for some time. The man understood gradually that all of them were dead, and that he was the only one alive, and that they were walking somewhere he could not finally go. The understanding was not, in his chest, terrifying. It was somehow calming. The country was grey and patient and very old. It had the quality of a country that had been hosting dead travelers for a very long time, and that did not, in its long custom, treat them with anything but quiet respect. "Where are you going?" he asked his stranger. "Back. Back to where?" "Back to where we were sent. We came back from there because we did not find what we were sent for. We are returning now to ask the question better. What were you sent for?" "To be answered." The man considered this. "You did not in your lives find your answers?" "None of us did. We carried our questions with us into the ground. The ground does not in its nature absorb questions. Questions are not in their substance of the body. They live after the body in another country. We have been in that country for some time, some of us for a long time, and we have been working on our questions. We have found that the questions, when worked at, become better. The first form of a question is almost always the wrong form. The deeper form of the question is closer to the answer. We are returning now to ask the deeper form of our questions to the place that knows the answers. It is not exactly a place. It is more like a condition. We are walking back to the condition. Will you find your answers this time? Some of us will. Some of us will return again to refine the questions further. The condition is patient. The condition does not, in its giving of answers, hurry. We have in our country all the time we need. The procession reached at last a place where the road simply ended. There was no city. There was no door. There was only the place where the road ended. The road at its end gave way to a kind of soft mist, not a wall, not a barrier, but a different kind of air. Strangers ahead of them were stepping off the road into the mist, one by one. They did not in stepping hesitate. They did not in stepping turn back. They simply walked into the mist and were no longer visible. The man's father was approaching the end of the road. The man stood at the edge. He could not follow. The stranger beside him touched his arm. "This is as far as the living come," said the stranger. "We have walked you the first stretch. You may now return. Your father is approaching the mist. He will, in his own time, step into it. He will not look back. This is not because he does not love you. It is because the looking back is, by the customs of this country, not done. The looking back is the work of the next country. He will, in some sense, look back from there. You will, when you return to your own country in your own life, occasionally feel his looking. You will know when you feel it that it has come from across the mist." The man watched. His father stepped into the mist. The man wept for the first time since the morning of the death. He wept quietly on the road in the grey country. The stranger stood beside him. The stranger did not, in his standing, offer comfort beyond his standing. The standing was, in itself, a kind of comfort. The man had not, since his early childhood, been stood with in this particular way. After some time he turned. The stranger walked him back. The road in the return was shorter than it had been in the going. They came back to the small wooden gate. The stranger opened it. The man stepped through. The stranger did not follow. "I will see you again," said the man. "Perhaps. There are not in any one life many opportunities, but the work I do is not in this country finished. I will be at other funerals. You may see me, you may not." The stranger nodded. He closed the gate. The man heard, on the far side, the sound of the stranger's footsteps moving away. The man walked back through the cemetery. The mourners had nearly all gone. His mother was still by the grave. She had been waiting for him. She looked at his face. "You have been somewhere," she said. "Yes." She did not that day or any day ask where. She had her own grief to attend to. She had her own memories. She had known the man's father for 50 years, and she had her own understandings of the road he had just walked. The man lived another 40 years. He went to many funerals in those years, the funerals of his uncles, his aunts, his older cousins, his mother, his neighbors, in time his wife. At every funeral he watched for a stranger he did not know. He saw in his 40 years, perhaps 4. He approached them. He spoke to them. They were in each case kind. He walked once or twice a small distance with them. Most of the time he simply nodded to them and let them do their work. He did not, in his lifetime, tell anyone about the road in the grey country. He understood, somehow, that the telling would have made it less real, not more. He kept it to himself. When his own funeral came, his son, who was by then a man of 50, watched for a stranger. He saw one. The stranger was tall, thin, with white hair, dressed in clothes the son could not place. The son approached him. The stranger looked at him. "Yes," said the stranger, "your father has been one of us in the years since his last passing. He has been walking the new dead. He told me you would be at his own funeral. He sends his regards. Would you like to walk a little of the way?" The son nodded. He walked. He came back. He did not tell anyone. The work continues in some province with each generation. The dead return from where they were sent. They did not find what they were sent for. They walk a little way with the new dead to ask the question. Better you may walk with them, you cannot follow. The looking back is the work of the next country. You will feel it in your own life occasionally. The stranger at the funeral is real. He has come for the new dead. He will walk you also the first stretch. Most do not in their lifetimes see him. The few who do watch for him. At every funeral after